All right. Well, hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Red Groove Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Earl Holder, aka DJ Solero. And today, or rather tonight, I'm here with a very accomplished award-winning actress slash vocalist slash lyricist, as well as member of the often sampled Stax recording group, the 24 Karat Black, Miss C. Niambi. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Miss
Yes.
Niambi Steele. Miss Steele, thank you so much for availing time out of your busy schedule to come on the show.
Why, I thank you for inviting me, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, for starters, what are some of your humble beginnings as an artist?
Well, my humble beginnings started with an argument that I had with my mother. I had 2 children, and I was divorced. And she said, well, that's all you're gonna be now is a mother. And I was like, there's nothing else? So I started looking for something else to add to my title because I didn't finish college. I dropped out to marry my high school sweetheart, and I thought that was a wise thing to do because when I went to college, all the girls were looking for husbands. And I thought, well, I could have did this at home. I mean, I got a boyfriend at home. So, I wasn't thinking universally. I was just thinking about me, and I didn't think about the future. I just thought about, like, right now, I don't have to go to college because all they're doing here is finding boyfriends, and I don't need that. I can go home. So that's what I did. And I married my high school sweetheart, and he went to Vietnam, came back, and I had 2 children, and that was over. And my mother said, that's all you gonna be. And I was like, no, there's gotta be something. So at the time, there was a program called Bowling for Dollars. And I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna go on Bowling for Dollars. And it was kind of regional. I lived in Indianapolis, Indiana at the time. And so they would be in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. And I was like, wow, I could.
Is that you or me?
Stuff, a bowler. Newspaper, an ad for a play. It was like a little thing that said, they're looking for people to be in this play. It was at a church. And so I said, well, maybe I could do that. That's closer. That's something I could really do, like right now. So I went to the church and I started getting involved in theater. And through that, I developed quite a liking for theater. And I stayed with that. And through several different organizations that I was connected with, I got to be involved in an event planning, which was coming to Indianapolis. It was going to be very big. It was going to be Stax Records. It was Nikki Giovanni. I think it was Shirley Chisholm. It was like a whole lot of people. It was all Black, really involved. And that was my passion. I had an afro. I mean, I had already broken all the rules. So here I was. This was going to be the epitome of everything. And so I got on that committee, and part of my responsibilities was to write the introduction to the speaker, who was going to be Nikki Giovanni. So I did that, and the event is there, and it's all big, and this band is playing from Stax Records called 24 Karat Black. And they were fabulous. And, since I was part of the planning committee, I got to go backstage and I was hanging out. And, it was the 70s. Everything was good, So, I hobnobbed a bit and ended up finding out that they were looking for some new vocalists. I didn't know their history because this was a new band. So I just knew that I was being asked to join the group, but I had to audition and I had to go to Chicago. And so I sold my food stamps and got a bus ticket and went to Chicago, and that's how I started. That's how I started with them.
We're like, what songs did they have you audition? Like, have you sing as a part of the audition? Like any like Jackson 5 songs or Supreme songs or something?
No, it was like they wanted me to know from the very beginning that this group was like nothing I'd ever heard. I kind of got a taste of it at the dinner, event. But they did play covers and everything because after all, it was kind of, that kind of event. And they played other music, but everybody was so excited. I didn't even hear the music. I don't even know what they played. When I got to Chicago, they told me about the album they already had and that I would be, taking another lady's part that had left the group, and I would have to learn their songs. And because I was a dancer also during that period of time, they needed some type of creativity because the band was not like play 4 songs, take a break, play 3, take a break. This was like a show. And I only knew just a bit, but whatever I did, it was horrible. I wasn't good at all. I was crying. I thought, here I was at an apartment building, probably at least 50 stories tall in Chicago. I'm looking out of the window onto Lake Michigan. I mean, this apartment building is like something out of a movie. I felt like, oh, I'm in the big time, just getting out of the car and looking at the building. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I think I've done too much.
Now, was this before or during the recording process of the 24 Blacks Ghetto Misfortunes Wealth?
Oh no, the album was out. The album was finished. I didn't have anything to do with Ghetto's Misfortunes Wealth except to promote it all over the country, to learn my routines, to interject my creative energy, to be at rehearsals. I had nothing to do with it. I'm on the second album, which is Go on the Promises of Yesterday. But the first album, I was just there, I'm part of the team. I'm just making the team work to make the dream work. That's what it was. And so Mr. Warren was very dynamic, and he did everything. He played everything. He could play every instrument. He could play classical piano, violin, drums. He could do everything. And he was just one of the most generous people that I had met so far in my career.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, like, what are some of your fondest memories of the late Dale O. Warren, who's, as a lot of people know, was the master arranger, conductor, composer of the entire 24 Karat Black concept. So what are some of your fondest memories of working with the man?
I just remember that he was very encouraging because, like I said, my audition was horrible. Whatever I did, I couldn't find my throat. I couldn't find anything. I was nervous. I was just totally overwhelmed by the whole possibility. So he was like, I know you have something to add. And I feel like today is not a day to judge you, but a day to welcome you. And that's what he did. He welcomed me, and I felt no one had ever done that, really. I felt overwhelmed and just, I didn't know what to expect, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And because I was older than most of the people. Most of the people in the band were 18, 19. I was 23, 24. I had two children. So he kind of treated me more like an adult. So we talked more than just, this is your place, stand there, move here, go there. We had conversations about what he dreamed for 24 Karat Black. And I was privileged sometimes to be a part of things. Maybe he called me to his hotel room and he'd be on the phone with Al Bell or somebody at Stax, or something was going on, and I'd be able to hear and see him react, do different things. And I just felt like there was something there for me because he made me feel like that.
How was the vibe over at Stax Records? How was your experience working at that company?
Well, it was kind of strange because everything I never went to Stax. I never went to Memphis. All that happened before I got there. The first 24 Karat Black group had their own personal tour of Stax Records. And so I didn't get that. In fact, I got to hear all the stories about Elvis being at the at the record company. I got to hear all the stories, but I never got to go.
Well,
I'm still waiting.
Okay. Well, getting back to live performances for a second, how was Karat Black generally received by audiences around the time whenever you guys would perform live?
Well, it was mixed. It was mixed because we just didn't do the normal thing, we had a message, first of all, and the message was poverty needs to go. It needs to get out of here. So there were times when we had a casket in the club to bury poverty. Now, Black people don't normally like to be around caskets, especially if it's not somebody they know, if it's not the funeral, if the repast and the wake is over, the casket got to go. So for us to bring caskets into a club and march it through the club, Mr. Warren had all kinds of weird ideas. But what was also happening was the music. And while all these shenanigans or different scenarios were playing out, because it was more like short little skits, I can't, it's short little skits with music going on. I know you've seen Funkadelic and how they cavort, they have on diapers or whatever. But we didn't have on that kind of costume, but we had messages mixed into the music, and we do certain skits. And sometimes they were not rehearsed per se. The music was always rehearsed with precision. The music was never off, because we would rehearse after the show, which was like 3 a.m. So we would rehearse from when the club closed until 7, 8 a.m. And the reason he did that was because he didn't want 19 and 18 and 17-year-old people out in the street after the club. So that's why we had rehearsal after the club. And it kept everybody pretty straight. But our performances were met with mixed reviews. Sometimes nobody was there. Sometimes lots of people were there. Most of the times we didn't get paid, but we had the vision, and the motor behind everything was Dale Warren telling us this music is going to survive. This music will be around for your grandchildren's grandchildren.
Now, describe the recording process going into the second album.
The second album, a lot of things had happened, and we were going to make this album no matter what, because we were still on the road. We stayed on the road about 3 years. And but in the meantime, while we were making the album, Mr. Warren took a job in LA because he was doing the soundtrack for the movie The Klansman with O.J. Simpson.
O.J., yeah.
And
I think Muhammad Ali was in that one too, right?
No, Elizabeth Taylor's old husband,
okay.
Her husband, whatever his name was, Richard Burton. Richard Burton was in that movie, and O.J. Simpson. And so he was doing the soundtrack for that to make more money so we could finish the recording. But the recording was, I would say, very organic. It came from a place of a lot of emotions, and you know, it always tickles me that that they think that Tyrone is saying infrared, and he never said that. But anyway, I'm not going to tell you what he really said, but it's not infrared.
Was the second album meant to be like a continuation of the first album, Ghetto Misfortunes?
Well, now there were going to be a series. So Ghetto Misfortunes Wealth, if you examine what that really means, what does that mean? And then when you look at the titles in the album, food stamps, Mother's Day, brown bagging, these are all typical things that happen in a ghetto, and that it is the wealth of the ghetto is the people. The people are important. So the next level for the people are in Mr. Warren's thoughts, and I hate to say that this is what he thought because he's not here, but this is what I got out of it. That the next level would be disappointment, dissatisfaction, but being able to speak about it in a way that is still powerful, to let you know that even though some of the promises of yesterday are gone, we're still here because we can talk about it. And that album had a certain concept which we never really got to explore as an expression on stage, because before that happened, Stax was wiped out.
This was in 1975,
we were just left with a recorded album that never got to prove itself on stage as the concept was supposed to be.
It wasn't until like decades later when the album finally was released, correct?
Well, you know, I missed the whole. By the time I found out where everybody was, it was 2012. I left 24 Karat Black in 1975, and it took me 40 years to find the band again. Even though I stayed packed for like maybe 2-3 years because I thought they'd come back to get me. But I never heard from anybody, and you know, life goes on and you start doing other things. So I went straight back into my roots, which was theater. And so I did a lot of theater. And then I finally moved to New York in order to pursue that. because I thought, you know, that chapter of my life was over, and I recorded, you know, with Jack McDuff, and I sang with a rock band. I went to England. You know, I did a lot of stuff.
How was that
And
recording with brother Jack McDuff?
what was it like? What was it like?
Yes.
It was it was it was intense.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
It was intense. It was I learned a lot, you know. I got a chance to work with him, record at Sugar Hill Studios, which a lot of people don't realize that Sylvia Robinson bought Sugar Hill as it was a jazz record company.
That's right.
And she called McDuff and asked him, do you want to stay on the label? Because it's getting ready to change. He's like, I don't care, just be there. So that's what we did. We recorded at Sugar Hill Records, you know, when The Message and all of those records were coming out. So it was very interesting, very intense. Jack McDuff was a total professional. He didn't need me, and he never let me forget it. So, you know, but on the other hand, he was a fun guy, you know, lots of fun. So, you know, you get what you take. You take what you get.
Over the years, since the 24 Karat Black's initial release of Ghetto Misfortune's Wealth, various rappers such as Diggable Planets, Jay-Z, Nas, and the list goes on, have sampled from the record. And I just would like to get your take as to what you like. How do you feel about rappers, or rather hip hop producers, sampling from your group?
Well, I'll just say that those samples,
Yeah, that's okay.
those samples were happening while I was raising my kids on welfare. And I didn't even know. And of course, because I didn't really make Ghetto Misfortune's Wealth, I only promoted it. Maybe I should have known something, but I just didn't. I was too busy taking care of my family and, you know, trying to survive. But the ones who did record it, I'm sorry that they didn't get any money. They didn't get anything. And it's sad, because the reason Bruce Thompson, who was the organist and our band leader, he had all the tapes because he was Mr. Warren's protege. And he had those tapes in Chicago in a basement for 30 years. Mm. Now, one of our guitar players, Rayford Griffin, was near death. He was very sick. And Bruce had an opportunity to sell the tape. And Numero Records ended up being the one, you know, with the Ghetto. Not Ghetto, with Gone, The Promises of Yesterday, that whole album that we recorded that stayed on a tape. They took all those songs and remastered them, and Bruce was able, because I finally found Bruce in 2012, and he told me I was able to give Rayford some money before he died for the work he did and the work we did when we went through hell and back, being on the road, no money, staying in hotels where we were rated like we were like such a large company in the 70s. going to Mississippi and taking like a whole floor of rooms. The police would come and see who we were and search us, take down your clothing, your shoe boxes, whatever. And we went through that in several towns in the 70s, just trying to, be artists and be performers. And so all that work and no money and eating out of the ocean when we were once when we were in Florida, we had to literally catch our dinner. It's where I learned to love oysters because I had to catch them and break the back and open it up and eat it up. That was how we lived. We stole oranges because there was a lot of them down there. People didn't want you to ask, you just took them. So I guess it's not really stealing, but we ate. We did have a lot of difficult days. And it's so sad now to realize that the drum solo that was taken from that's on It's Cool Like That.
Diggable Planets. Yeah.
He never got a dime, and he's very, very ill right now. He's had several serious health issues that's come across his life. He's buried a child. It's so sad, and these people know what they did. I've been asking for what do you call that? Reparations from the music industry. Y'all just get together and do it. Nobody, we've told our story. You're not the first person that's asked me for an interview. I've had different interviews, and it started in 2018 for me anyway, with Kyle Long in Indianapolis, Indiana, because I was there taking care of my mom, and he did an interview. Then the next thing I know, Zach Schoenfeld, he wrote for Pitchfork. He wrote the interview that said, 24 karat black has been sampled. What does it say? I got it right here.
Yeah, I remember the interview.
Got Pusha T, Kendrick Lamar, Nas, Jay-Z, and they're still broke.
Yeah, that was.
They're still broke. That hurt because I was just burying my mother. when this came out, and it was so sad. It was so sad. I had nothing to prove of anything. And so, it's really sad because these people know who we are. We haven't been invisible. You can find a sample, you can find a people.
Let me ask you something. Was Dale O. Warren, the producer of Ghetto Misfortunes Wealth, before he passed away in '94, was he aware of the Diggable Planets sampling food stamps for their song Cool Like That back in '93?
I don't know because, like I said, I lost contact with everyone. I went home to be with my son on his 5th birthday, and I came home with nothing. I had lost my luggage, my costumes, my shoes, my jewelry, everything. But I came home because I couldn't do it anymore. My son was having a birthday. He hadn't seen me in 3 years. So I didn't know where Dale was. And, there were no cell phones and, YouTube and all this. That didn't exist. And then in the 90s, I don't know what happened. In the 90s, you were barely getting beepers, pagers, all that kind of stuff. There wasn't this kind of technology that there is today. So I don't know what Dale knew, but I know what he told us. He told us that 24 karat black was an entity that all our names belong to. And just like when I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, just like those guys had whatever they all wrote it. We were all supposed to get the credits. He told us that. He said, you will be living off of this music when your grandchildren have grandchildren. Well, so far, my grandchildren do have children. And I'm still here and I haven't got a dime. Oh, I did get $500 big dollars because when this Pitchfork article came out, I think it kind of shamed Numero, because I've been talking to people at Numero, and they told me that the reason we didn't get any money was because Kanye hadn't signed the papers yet, and they let him get away with that because he's Kanye. And he can go for years without signing the correct paperwork because he didn't feel like it. But when they did give me $500, well, that let me know there's more.
Yeah,
Why would you give me $500 if you didn't owe me even more? So I heard that they unfriended certain people who wrote the article. I won't name names, but I heard that Numero didn't like that, and they unfriended people, and you know, I don't know. I get emails from Numero from the accounting department that tells me that I received an advance. Well, I know good. You told me not to cuss, but I know good and bleep, bleep, bleep.
Right.
Well, that was not an advance. You've had that record since that tape since 2000 and something, and maybe 8 or 9 is when Bruce first went to them. You know, with the bare tape that was crumbling, literally crumbling. But
wow. Well, are you in contact with any of the members today in 2021?
oh yes, like I said, I'm in touch with Tyrone and his wife Teresa, their sons. And like I said, they lost a daughter very tragically. And I grew up with those, I should say, I was there when those children were born. And I lived with Tyrone and Teresa like a year in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and their children were around me when my own children weren't, you know. So I'm in touch with them. I'm in touch with Princess Hearn. She was Dale's wife. In fact, she was one of the youngest members of the 24 Karat Black.
Yeah, they married and divorced later on, right?
Yeah, they married and divorced. I don't know the whole situation because when we were on the road, it was like no fraternization with the band members. But he married the lead singer.
He broke his own
So,
rule.
you know, it is what it is, like they say.
Hey, look, it is what it is, just like you said.
Yes.
Also that you also, aside from the music, you're also an actress, correct?
Yes. That's my first love. My first love is theater, dance, music. And I'm still here in the theater. I was fortunate enough to be. Well, I had some bit parts in the 80s in like Crush Groove. And let's see, there was Beach Street.
In Crush Groove and Beach Street?
Yeah, that I had just.
Wow.
Yeah, I had just come to New York. Basically, I hadn't been here that long. And I can't even remember how I got in those movies. Oh, I think it was through oh yes, through a lady. I know the Heavy D video that I'm in, which is Heavy D, Mr. Big Stuff. I'm in that
You're in
video.
that video?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Big Stuff? Okay. I got
Yeah,
one down for you.
I have on a red dress with a very high split. So you look for the dress, you'll see the split. But at any rate, I got in that video through a lady that I really loved. Her name was Francesca Spiro. God rest her soul. She worked for WBLS, and the Apollo was reopening, and she needed somebody to be, the gopher, or as they call us, production assistants. And so I had a friend who said, I don't want to do it. I don't, so I said, okay, I'll do it. So I ended up working backstage at the Apollo during the time when LL Cool J came out with my radio. And I have lots of stories to tell about that. That whole segment of my life was very exciting. So that's how I got in Heavy D's video, because Russell Simmons and the Hudlin brothers and all those types of people, Kid and Play, all these things were happening at the same time. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, what are you up to presently?
Well, last year, this time, 2020, I was awarded an award, an Adelco Award here in New York, which is a theatrical award. And but all of 2020, theaters were closed here. So I had to create my own activity, which I then this year won a grant from New York City artists who helped out artists who were impacted by the pandemic. So I won a grant for creating a program called History in the Key of. And History in the Key of was History in the Key of G this time, because I'm very grateful. And I started thinking about all the things I had to be grateful for. And I created a community interactive intergenerational event that was very well received a grant. And now I'm writing. That was my first time writing a grant. So I'm writing another one. And hopefully, if I do win it, I'll be able to record some of my own music that I've written myself, and not totally rely on my past with records or material that I've recorded that I'm not getting anything for. So I may as well try to record something of my own. And I have about 10, maybe 12 songs that I'm hoping to get money to produce. But in the meantime, I am pushing for reparations from some of these recording artists. I want them all to get together. Everyone who's ever recorded or sampled a 24 karat black song should get together and make reparations, because we are all, I used to be the oldest, and I still am, I think. I'm 73. And so
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
I'm not going to what as I say that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't have a ring light. This is just a regular old lamp with no lampshade, okay?
Hey, look, it is what it is. Don't find any criticism over here.
I don't have no ring lights. I don't have none of that fancy schmancy, Instagram ready. I'm an Instagram model. No,
it's all good. Don't even worry about it.
I'm 73, and those that are just a little younger than me, they might be 69, 70. they're ill. I've been blessed, not because I did anything, but because I just have a blessing. And I have not been hit by major illness. I did have a brain aneurysm, which they found, you know, a few years ago. And it was because I was trying to, find a means to get some money, and I participating in a test at a university for Alzheimer's disease, which my mother had that. So I always try to participate in any type of research, and they just happened to be paying. So that was even a bonus. And during those tests, they found that I had an aneurysm that had never given me, I didn't have a headache, I didn't have anything. And I had to have surgery to have it removed. But, other than that, I don't have any serious health issues. So I've been very blessed in that way. I spent a couple of years being homeless because I got hit by a car and I couldn't work here in New York. So, but as you can see, I have an apartment here. I'm still in New York City. I took care of my mother. I've tried to be good to people. I just think it would be fair if number one, the artists who took our music and didn't pay for it, give us reparations. And to the government who took our Black people and enslaved us, give us reparations, because I'm also a descendant of slaves. And I know that story. So I know they had all that 40 acres and a mule. They gave that to the white people who they said needed to be compensated for losing their slaves. So that's why we didn't get the 40 acres, because they gave it to the ex-slave owners. Poor babies. So we didn't get any of that either. So I'm fighting, and I'm fighting for my own work, which I have done over the years.
If, like, at the time that you were a part of the 24 Karat Black, did you think that your group would be so influential decades later?
Yeah, but not in this way, not undercover, like people stealing. That's the only reason we're here, is because people have taken what we made and put it in something else and stirred it up and said they made it. But without that beat, or without that lick, or without that voice, would you have gotten the Pulitzer Prize? Because Prince's voice is on that record. That which one of it was it? Kendrick Lamar, is he the one that got the Pulitzer? I forget.
So, yeah, I believe it was Kendrick. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar.
If he hadn't used everything he used, would he have got what he got? He should have tried it without stealing, or the rest of them. They should have tried why didn't they put their music out without the samples? It wasn't good enough. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, it's not like people haven't used music. Just look at the old DJs. I'm from the South. I was raised up in the South. So DJs used to talk to music, and they would rap to music before rap was a rap. DJs
I
was
see
rap.
it. No, I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
No, but I'm just saying it's not new.
Yeah, I see it sort of like
talking to music is not new.
Right. I see it sort of like how, like, bluesmen, or just like musicians from back in the days, back in the 60s and 70s, would like do covers of other people's music.
Mm-hmm.
I see sampling the same way. It's sort of like a cover of someone's music. The only difference is sometimes you get, credited for it, and other times you don't. It's no different from when Led Zeppelin used to rip off various bluesmen from back in the days. I see it as the same exact thing.
But you see, they did go back and take those bluesmen on the road. They took them to England. They got them paid. They did recognize from whence they came. That's not the way the rappers do it. They have not recognized anybody that they took from. They just keep racking up the dollars and saying they're going to heaven with your Sunday service. Who gonna let you in? Because if I'm up there, I'm gonna be at the gate.
Gotcha. No, I see what you're saying.
Keep singing on Sunday.
I see exactly where you're coming from. But on a different note, do you have any like words or like other words of encouragement, like, you know, to in conclusion, like any words of wisdom that you would like to give to anyone that might be interested in being a part of this industry?
Never give up. Never take no. Never say never. Because when I was at my lowest, which is when I was in a homeless shelter here in New York City, at the age of 58, I think I was 58. That's not where I expected to be. I was an educated woman. I had degrees. I was a private nurse. After I left 24 Karat Black, I became a nurse. And a woman from New York hired me out of a hospital and brought me back to New York in 2002. That's how I ended up back here. It wasn't music, it was work. So I have worked hard in all kinds of things. I used to clean the graduate library at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I worked from 12 midnight till 8 a.m. scrubbing graffiti put on walls by graduate students. I drove a bus. I've done all kinds of things, but the biggest thing I've done is when I was in the homeless shelter and I was trying to figure out how did I get here. I remembered my grandmother and my great-grandmother. And I wrote a rap song about it. And that rap song that I wrote got me the grant that I just won this year. And this is what I said. I was doing just fine from the day I was born, growing up with my grandma way down on a farm, just 2 generations from slavery. My grandma took her own hands and she molded me. The hands was rough, hard, gentle to the touch. She taught me how she avoided the slave master's clutch. Her own granddaddy Black, the son of the master. Now go ahead and say it. You can call him a bad man. My great-great-grandpa, the son of the man. And in his mind, they gave him a great plan to make a mockery out of his family with no respect, you see. It was his plan to be the grandmaster of all the children he had fathered. But my great-grandma said, oh, no, you needn't bother to make a slave of me, your own blood daughter. You'd make a slave of me, your own blood daughter. So she took him to a courtroom and she won. And she took him to a courtroom and she won. Yeah, in LaGrange, Georgia. Yes, it was. It was that very day that she learned to pray. I often heard her say that she learned to pray. And when she learned to pray, this is what she said. God bless this mother's son that was standing in my way. I'm talking about my own history. It ain't gonna be no mystery because I'm gonna tell you the truth, you see. Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
All right. Miss Niambi Steele.
I can't help
Talented
myself.
Miss Renaissance lady in the house. All right.
I can't help it, honey. I'm on fire. And I'm still here. I ain't going nowhere. Y'all better get my reparations.
Yeah, all right. Miss Niambi Steele, on that note, thank you so much for coming on the show and blessing the listeners with your wisdom. and you're welcome to come back on the show anytime, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and God bless
Same to you. Thank you so much. You have a good night, okay?
you. Okay. Bye-bye.